Hey everyone, in this mini lecture we're going to discuss the law of cosines. So with the law of cosines, it's also known as the cosine rule or sometimes referred to as the cosine formula. So what it does is it relates the length of the triangle to the cosines of one of its angles, right? It actually states that if the length of two sides and the angle between them is known for a triangle, then we can determine the length of the third side, right? And it's given by the following formulas. A squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc times the cosine of a, and the other two where we solve for b squared or c squared. So A, B, and C are, of course, the sides of the triangle. So once you get A squared, B squared, or C squared, you'll have to use the square root property to get A, B, or C, the actual sides of the triangles. Another thing that we want to look at is sometimes we want to find the angles of a triangle, right? If we want to find the angles of a triangle, then we can say, let's find the cosine of A. So the cosine of A. We just do a little bit of algebra to one of the formulas above, and we'll say the cosine of A is equal to b squared plus c squared minus a squared. Right? You take all of that, and then you divide by 2bc. And in a similar way, we'll say, let's say we want to find the cosine of B, we'll take plus c squared minus b squared. Take that entire quantity, divide by 2ac. And then lastly, let's say we want to find the cosine of c. We'll take quantity of b squared plus a squared minus c squared, that entire quantity, and divide by 2 times a b. And I said we're solving for cosine A, cosine B, cosine C, but eventually we want to get the angle measurement of A, B, or C. So once you get to cosine A equals something, or cosine B equals something, cosine C equals something, then you're going to use your calculator and then use the inverse cosine to actually find that angle measurement. Okay, so let's go ahead and work through a problem. The problem can be as such. Call it our first example. So here we have a triangle drawn out for us. Triangle with angle A, C, and of course we have side B, opposite angle B, side A, opposite angle A, side C, opposite angle C. So we'll call this, we can call that angle X, or you could call it angle A, but sometimes different examples want to notate it a different way, so we'll call it angle X. We'll call this angle Y and angle Z. And again, you can call that angle B or angle C. So let's say we have A being 10 centimeters, B being 7 centimeters, and C being 5 centimeters, right? So we're going to find angle X. All right, find angle X. Okay, let's hop right into it. Use the law of cosines. So we have a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine of a, or that a is the x, or right, that a is x, or we could say, let's make this the cosine of a is equal to b squared plus c squared minus a squared. that entire quantity divided by 2 times BC, right? If you recall from what we wrote earlier with the formulas and how we just used a little bit of algebra to solve for cosine A, cosine B, and cosine C. All right, so we could use either one of those. So if you just memorize the first 3 formulas, then you would just do the algebra and get to this formula that I've written a triple star next to. Okay, so to get cosine of A, or we could call it cosine of X as the problem entails, right? Cosine of X. We're just going to substitute in. So B is 7 squared plus 5 squared minus 10 squared. Right, all the sides are given. Divide that by 2 times B times C. Well, that's 2 times 7 times 5. And now, using a bit of number crunching power from our calculator, we'll get 49 plus 25 minus 100. Divide that by 2 times 7 times 5 gets us 70. All right, and then you'll get cosine X equals negative 0.37. Cosine of X is negative 0.37. If you recall what I stated when I was talking about the formulas, the last piece in this is to actually find the measure of the angle X. So you would go ahead and use that inverse cosine button on your calculator, right? Inverse cosine of the negative 0.37, and then we'll get angle X is about 111 degrees.